instead.
Okay, so this looks like this one has been recorded from Patrick's perspective. So Patrick's team here is Excadrill, Tyranitar, Dusclops, Primarina, Rillaboom, and Togekiss facing down against Costas of the Rillaboom, Riolu, Whimsicott, the Cinderace, and the Lapras. And the Comfey as well. Sorry, I had a little bit of a hiccup there. Really interesting teams from both of them. I'm kind of liking the Sandcore there, though, on Patrick's side.
Yeah, very classic Pokemon coming out from Patrick's side with that duo of the Excadrill Tyranitar, and also, I would say, a duo of Tyranitar Dusclops as well that has been picking up in recent series as well. But we've got some new faces there coming out from Costa's side, that Riolu and that Comfey as well, bringing some really nice tricks to the table with both of them. The Riolu being the only Pokemon with access to that new move Coaching with a +1 priority thanks to its Prankster ability. So going to be able to give its teammates a +1 attack boost and a +1 defense boost with priority as well. So that's going to be very significant on his physical attackers he's got here with that Cinderace and the Rillaboom as well. And also the Comfey going to be able to go for those really, really fast moves, even more priority than Prankster with the Triage, going to give +3 priority to all of its healing moves with that Draining Kiss and maybe potentially a Giga Drain as well.
Yeah, Patrick as well has got two nice kind of speed sides to his team. You can go really fast with Sand Rush if you wanted to go with trying to extra lead, but then having that Dusclops on there always leads you to some kind of Trick Room mechanic, and with something like Primarina, that could be a really good option for him going forward. But Costa coming out with the Cinderace and the Riolu as well. Wonder if we are going to see some coaching coming out here. It's such a great move, like you said, with the priority, able to boost up the partner Pokemon against the Dusclops and the Togekiss of Patrick.
Yeah, and we'll also have to see the coverage moves that this Cinderace has decided to go for as well. It does have access to Iron Head, so it would be able to go for a super effective move into this Togekiss. It also has Sucker Punch, which could do super effective damage against this Dusclops, but Togekiss is having none of that.
Yeah, Togekiss, I think, wisely redirecting around here. Riolu going for the coaching, going to go straight onto his partner Pokemon here, so Cinderace will be getting the boost in its attack and its defense going into this turn as it goes for the Iron Head. Of course, the Libero ability going to change its typing so that it always has that super effective sort of same type attack bonus. Going into that Togekiss picks up a really clean one-hit KO, but it does leave Dusclops free to go for a potential Trick Room, which is exactly what it's doing here. Yes, it's sad you've lost the Togekiss, you've lost your redirection and potential critical hits, which could be really good against that Riolu as well with any fairy typing moves, but it gives Patrick the opportunity to bring in a Pokemon to utilize this Trick Room better.
Yeah, the Togekiss may not have been able to use the Trick Room very well, so it actually going down in one hit will be quite beneficial for Patrick here. He'll be able to bring in one of the Pokemon that likes to be under the Trick Room setting and be able to fire off some big attacks before that Cinderace can move. If it is going to be the Rillaboom, then the coaching is really going to be helping out this Cinderace with those defense boosts. But if it is a special attacker coming in for Patrick's side instead, the coaching isn't going to help that Cinderace be able to survive. And yeah, the Riolu also not known for its offensive prowess. It really just wants to get those coaching boosts onto its partner. And when the partner can't make use of those boosts, then it's going to be quite tricky.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not able to utilize the boosts that have been given to you, then it's almost a complete wasted turn from that Riolu and then also from yourself, because there's just going to be no damage being dealt out on the field. But it looked like Patrick was really considering which Pokemon he's going to bring in there. Opted for the Primarina, which I wouldn't be surprised to see him Dynamax. He is hovering over that button at the moment, but in Trick Room you can make such good use of some really strong attacks. You can go for the Max Geyser, get the Rain up as well, so the Water type moves deal even more damage going forward.
Yeah, Primarina being one of the most consistent Trick Room sweepers that we have in this format so far. And yeah, I'm not going to be able to ignore those coaching boosts completely with that Cinderace. So we'll have to see if there's a trick up that Riolu sleeve to help out its buddy Cinderace beyond that coaching, which can't boost the special defenses.
Yeah, exactly. It will still be boosting up the attack though, so if the Cinderace is left unchecked, it's going to be dealing out some really heavy hits. And like you said, we haven't seen its full move pool yet, but it has such diverse choices it can go for. And with that Libero ability, it will threaten anything that's going for a super effective move. Primarina is going for its Dynamax, though. I always think this is one of the most majestic animations when it goes into its form, ready to deal out loads of big damage. As Riolu, however, goes for a copycat.
Yeah, and the last move used was that Trick Room, so it's going to be able to reverse the Trick Room immediately, and now the Cinderace is going to be once again the fastest thing on the field.
Oh, Cinderace here going for the Iron Head at +1, does a big chunk of damage to that Dynamax Primarina, as Primarina, however, goes for the Max Geyser, so it will get the rain up on this particular turn. Going into that Cinderace, actually picks up the KO even though it wasn't in kind of its fire type mode. You can just see how much damage Primarina is capable of giving out, but I want to know what this Dusclops is going to be going for. I don't believe we saw it move at the beginning. Goes for the Nightshade here, so going to be doing 50 damage to this Riolu, breaking any potential focus sash that it had there.
Yeah, just such a wonderful use of the copycat there from Riolu. Once again, having priority there, so it's going to be able to move even in the Trick Room. And since the Trick Room was the last move used, it was able to copy that. So if the Dusclops did have access to a priority move of its own, it would have been able to put a stop to that copycat and keep the Primarina the fastest thing on the field. But now, the Primarina's out of the Trick Room again, and it's going to be really threatened down by this Rillaboom. Once again, going to be a great candidate for the coaching coming out from the Riolu as well. So the Rillaboom, if it wants, it can just go for a Grassy Glide into the Primarina with just a coaching, or it can choose to go for that huge Gigantamax drum solo, maybe targeting down the Dusclops. With a coaching boost, it's a very strong move, that drum solo, especially with the Grassy Terrain boost. It may be enough to take out the Dusclops, and the Primarina definitely doesn't want to be hit by a grass move.
Yeah, no Max Guard coming out here from the Primarina. Instead, Rillaboom's going to come out in turn for Patrick here. It's definitely a more optimal target from Patrick's perspective. It's going to have to take any big grass type damage from the opposing Rillaboom, as Costa decides to go for a Dynamax of his own here. Going to be going for that Rillaboom, and I think you're right, Jamie. I wouldn't be surprised to see coaching coming out here from the Riolu either.
Yeah, and the Dusclops can't even safely set up Trick Room again because of that threat of Copycat. So this Rillaboom is just going to be able to get off a huge hit with this coaching.
Yeah, it certainly will, boosting up the attack and defense once again. I think it's so interesting that this Riolu, such a small little Pokemon, is actually applying so much pressure here. The G-Max Drum Solo going into the Dusclops with that boost in the terrain and a critical hit. Like, what more do you want if you're Costa right now? That was just perfect from his Rillaboom going into the Dusclops, and it just removes the threat now of that Trick Room, meaning Riolu is safe to just keep going for coachings. It doesn't have to waste a turn and going full Copycat. It can just keep boosting up this Rillaboom.
And this Primarina really wanted to be in that Trick Room environment to be able to fire off attacks before this Rillaboom, and now that the Trick Room got reversed immediately by the Riolu, Rillaboom on Costa's side is going to be moving first and threatening a huge amount of damage to this Primarina, and the Rillaboom on Patrick's side isn't going to be able to do much damage to the Rillaboom on Costa's side in return. So even if he was in the Trick Room, the Rillaboom would be in a fantastic position, but yeah, Patrick knows that this game is over.
Yeah, that Riolu really did cause him a lot of trouble. And it wasn't just from the coaching where you have to make sure that you're then... It puts a difficult situation if you're Patrick, because the Pokemon that's being coached is then really offensively threatening. So you have to find a way to pick up KOs against it so that it doesn't start dealing big damage to your team. But at the same time, if you're targeting that Pokemon, the Riolu is being untouched and it's free to just go, okay, you took down that Pokemon. Well, what's the next one? Oh, let me coach that one too. And then you have this kind of vicious cycle of not being able to remove the problem Pokemon of the fear of losing one of your own to a big, super effective attack.
Yeah, if you target down the Pokemon that's being coached, then you can just bring in another Pokemon to get a boost from the coaching in the future. But then if you target down the Riolu, then the Pokemon that's got coached is being able to fire off a free +1 attack boost, boosted move without being targeted down. So it's quite a nice combination coming out from the Riolu. Quite a unique one. We haven't really seen too much with a strategy like this. Maybe just self-procs from Weakness Policy, but this is such a unique way of being able to boost your target Pokemon. We've had Decorate from Alchemy as well, but that doesn't help boost the defenses. That just goes for the offense with the attack and the special attack boost. So being able to boost both the offensive prowess and the defensiveness of your Pokemon is such a cool combination that this Riolu was able to do.
I mean, it's difficult now if you're Patrick to sort of pick your leads wisely, because if you look at sort of the Cinderace, we know that it does like to go for a lot of those fighting type attacks as well, something like a high jump kick, or if you want to not risk the accuracy, you could always Dynamax and go for a Max Knuckle, and that's something that Excadrill and Tyranitar wouldn't want to face out against. Again, Primarina wouldn't want to face against any of those Iron Heads, and Rillaboom, again, doesn't want to face against any fire type moves. So it's very hard when you have that combination of Riolu and Cinderace to pick your lead. So what would you do in this situation here, Jamie? What do you think Patrick's going to do?
Oh, he does have that Sand mode sitting in the back, and the Excadrill would be able to outspeed the Cinderace if it was in that Sandstorm, and would be able to attack before it changes its type, so would be able to fire off a big ground move into the Fire type Cinderace, and even with a Gigantamax and a coaching from the Cinderace, it's not known to be the most bulky Pokemon, so that may be a way through that Cinderace with the Excadrill. But then you've still got the threat of the Pokemon in the back to deal with the Excadrill once the Cinderace has been taken care of. as potential coaching targets as well. And this Riolu is going to be very pesky. It's got that focus sash, as we saw from the Frisk from the Dusclops. So you do need to commit 2 attacks into the Riolu to stop those coaching boosts. And then that's 2 attacks that aren't going into the Pokemon that's doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, exactly. The Life Ball and that extra drill could really help out Patrick going forward. Make sure you deal that extra damage. So despite the coaching boost boosting up the defense, you'll have that extra offensive power to try and pick up the KO. We can see that he did have that Tyranitar in the back, so this could be a really nice lead where he's going for extra drill without the T-Tar, maybe leading Costa into a false sense of security, so you can then bring in the Tyranitar, get the boost from the sand, and then be able to pick up a nice little surprise KO. Wouldn't be surprised to see any change up here from Costa. Going to be the Cinderace and the Riolu once again, and it is indeed the Rillaboom and the extra drill there for Patrick.
Yeah, so going to be setting out that grassy terrain with the Rillaboom, and now the extra drill is in quite an awkward position if the Tyranitar doesn't switch in. The coaching will be able to boost up the Cinderace and be able to target down that extra drill, so you do have to wonder if Patrick is considering that Tyranitar switch in immediately to get that Sand Rush ability going on that extra drill, but then can Costa see into that potential play and be able to adjust with that Cinderace? With the coaching, it probably won't be able to survive with the extra drill, but then you could switch out your Cinderace into something that could resist the extra drill and still get that coaching boost that turn onto the Pokemon that switched in. Even if it's not something that could deal with the extra drill, maybe just something that could resist it, get that defense boost and shrug off whatever attacks the extra drill wants to go for.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of severe mind games in this sort of turn 0 of game 2. Because obviously Patrick, if he wants to be able to win the set, he's got to have that uphill struggle now, getting into a game 3. But Rillaboom are going to jump back into the Pokeball as the Tyranitar comes out, so he is going for this big offensive pressure here, going to get the sand up, will now boost the speed up of the extra drill. Like you said, Jamie, able to now move fastest on the field, as Costa does indeed go for the Dynamax. It looks like it's going to be the Cinderace up here. Will he have called this though?
Yeah, it's not going to be able to attack before that extra drill thanks to that Sand Rush, so it will be a Fire type and will be taking a super effective move if that's what the extra drill has decided to go for here. Will the coaching be able to save the Cinderace?
That is the question, whether these calculations have been made. Of course, the extra drill not in its Dynamax form as well, but it is Life Ball boosted, and that can be so critical. It's such a big offensive boost that it gets. High horsepower does connect, doesn't pick up the KO against the Cinderace, takes it down to just above a third there. As Cinderace goes for the max airstream. I think that's actually a really nice choice here. Yes, you lose the sort of speed against the extra drill, but now that you are a flying type, you can't be hit with another high horsepower, and it's quite safe if that Tyranitar switches in. As you can see, it still takes 50% of damage, and if Rillaboom had decided to stay in, I mean, it doesn't want to take a max airstream. It was kind of a really optimal position here for Costa, and now he's also got a speed boost up.
Yeah, so we'll have to see if the Cinderace is going to be faster than this extra drill in the sand with its +1 speed. It is a bit faster than extra drill naturally, but we'll have to see the interactions there between the extra drill and the Cinderace. The extra drill opting not to Dynamax here, and we saw how much damage the high horsepower would have done. If he would have gone for the max Quake instead, that would have very likely picked up a KO on that Cinderace based on the damage the high horsepower did. So an interesting choice to preserve his Dynamax for Patrick here. He did have the option of just immediately eliminating Costa's Dynamax on his side, but he did have to be fearful of that Cinderace maybe switching out into something that could resist the extra drills. So still wanting to go for that super effective hit into the Cinderace, but not committing completely, fearing that potential switch into something that could resist it. And now the Cinderace is still on the field and now has got a speed boost, so it's going to be really key whether the Cinderace is able to move before this extra drill, even in the sand.
Yeah, Patrick has to keep his nerve now. Cinderace in a prime position to be able to take another coaching from the Riolu, and also being speedy, puts himself in a really strong optimal position. But actually, Costa, maybe knowing the speed calculation strongly here and fears that the extra drill is going to be able to pick up the KO, decides to preserve the Dynamax Pokemon there. He won't have Dynamax anymore, but he might want the Cinderace for later on. Riolu going to catch the Rillaboom on the switch in here with the coaching, so Riolu still going to be able to do its job, get an attack boost up on an offensive Pokemon that's going to be able to deal that big damage the next turn if it's able to survive. Rock Slide coming out though from the extra drill. Sadly doesn't break the sash on the Riolu, does a little bit of chip to the Rillaboom, but I want to know what this Tyranitar is going to go for. Rock Slide as well, so this time successfully it breaks the sash. You can see it does a good amount of damage, but Rillaboom I think gets in for quite respectably free in a way, and now that you've got the grassy terrain up, something like Grassy Glide is going to have the priority.
Yeah, and one of the nice things about the Riolu, if you put your Riolu faster than your Rillaboom, you can go for a coaching before that priority Grassy Glide as well. And the Rillaboom could very easily get out of hand with those coaching boosts. It was able to catch one on the switch in and is looking very likely to receive another one here. And it will be a +2 defense facing down the Sand duo that it very much likes to face down. So it won't be taking too much damage as well. And we saw the Rock Slides really not doing too much damage to that Riolu.
No, and they're going to do even less damage to this Rillaboom now that it gets another defense boost up as well. It's now at +2 attack, which does give it a lot of offensive pressure. Goes for the Grassy Glide, of course, priority on that grassy terrain into the Extra Gel. Has been KO'd now, so that's something that Costa doesn't have to worry about too much. Superpower though coming out from the Tyranitar, going to go into the Riolu, and now critically removing that coaching Pokemon from the field. The one thing you do have to concern yourself with though is the Rillaboom is still in its terrain. It can still go for +2 grassy glides, and that's something that Patrick needs to be able to work around as well. If he has got something like Primarina in the back, he doesn't, so that's okay. And Togekiss, yes, it's a Pokemon that can take those relatively well, but you need to be able to find a way to KO this Rillaboom.
Yeah, you do, and Patrick still does have access to his Dynamax though. Costa only used one turn of his and switched it out, so Patrick now can go for a Dynamax, maybe on the Togekiss going for those Airstreams. But you saw how pesky that Riolu was. The Tyranitar had to commit a superpower to be able to KO it, as the Rock Slide and Crunch wouldn't have been enough to take it out. And that meant that it had to sacrifice some of its attack and defense, leaving it wide open from the Cinderace and the Rillaboom as well. The Rillaboom sitting at +2 attack in its grassy terrain is going to be doing a huge amount of damage with those grassy glides, effectively getting rid of the resistance from the Togekiss with its flying type. It will still be doing huge damage. So Patrick probably wanting to go for the Dynamax to be able to take out the Rillaboom with that Airstream. But then the Cinderace is still going to be able to move first as well as that Rillaboom. But Rillaboom deciding it's not going to move this turn.
Yeah, Costa switching things up once again, going to bring the Lapras here onto the field, preserving the Rillaboom maybe for later on, wants to potentially have something like Fake Out to help maneuver around the ball position a little bit. But Patrick now going for the Dynamax, and like you said, Costa only going for the turn one of his Dynamax is a really risky strategy. It's not like you can get it up again later on in the game and then go for those last 2 turns, for example. It's gone for this particular match. Togekiss, however, is going to be in a strong position to start reaping the benefits, but does have to worry about any Ice-type moves coming out from that opposing Lapras. Tyranitar going for the Protect. I think that was quite wise due to the threat that the Rillaboom had there at the beginning. Cinderace going to go for the Iron Head. Thanks to the Togekiss Dynamaxing, it knows it's going to be able to survive this. Does a good chunk of damage there and activates up the Weakness Policy, which is something very interesting to see when Togekiss has not moved yet for the turn. It's going to be dealing out even more damage and going for that Max Airstream to boost the speed up on his side of the field.
Yeah, it's going to be doing a huge amount of damage to that Lapras, and now we're seeing the benefit of holding off the Dynamax rather than going for it on the Excadrill. Now this Togekiss able to go for that Dynamax, get the Weakness Policy boost from that Iron Head, and now the Cinderace has lost its Gigantamax. It can't go for an Airstream, and the Sandstorm is enough to actually pick up the knockout on that Lapras. So wow. A huge amount of damage coming out from the Airstream, just putting it in range of that Sandstorm. Even though the Tyranitar wasn't able to attack that turn with a Protect, finishing off that Lapras. And now the Rillaboom's got to come back in. It's lost its coaching boost, so it won't be doing as much damage. But there's no threat of Follow Me. It would be able to take out the Tyranitar if it wants to. But the Togekiss has now got a boosted speed with that Airstream, and the Cinderace is no longer able to match that. So depending on how the Togekiss is trained, it could be outspeeding that Cinderace. So that's going to be a key interaction going into this turn, because Togekiss could potentially outspeed a Cinderace if it has got that Airstream boost, and would be able to take out either the Cinderace or the Rillaboom here. And we saw that the Iron Head was just not enough to be a 2-hit KO on that Togekiss. So even if the Cinderace was able to outspeed still and get that Iron Head, that Togekiss is probably firing off the max move anyway.
Exactly, and I think this is a really good move here from Patrick, bringing that Tyranitar to the back, resetting the stats, and bringing in the Rillaboom here, just so Tyranitar is going to be of more use later on in the game. Togekiss going to protect itself here from any damage coming out from Costa's side. So again, playing a little bit defensively on this particular turn. Switches out the Tyranitar, goes for the Protect, and also critically does it on a turn where Sand ends. So now Patrick knows when he brings that Tyranitar back in, he's going to be able to get the Sand up again and get the weather boost there. Yeah,
and he's reset the attack and defense drops that he's got from the superpower as well. And he's brought in a Pokemon that does have access to Fake Out. So a double up of that Grassy Glide and Iron Head would have been able to probably take out the Togekiss. But now, if you go for that Fake Out, then only one of those moves is going to be able to land into that Togekiss. And now that Patrick knows he doesn't have to fear any Dynamax, he can choose his target of the Fake Out and target of the Airstream coming out from this Togekiss.
Yeah, goes straight into that Cinderace, doesn't want to take any more potential Iron Heads here, so quite a wise choice. So Togekiss boosts up the speed even further, going for the max Airstream, going into the Cinderace. So even if Cinderace is protected, obviously the max moves are going through Protect here, so that would have been some more really good damage against that Pokemon that I think is definitely the biggest threat. You don't want to be taking any potential high jump hits on your Tyranitar coming back in, and as long as you're keeping the speed nice and boosted as well, you can threaten that Rillaboom with some more max Airstreams or the flying type moves once you're out of that Dynamax. You can see as well, Rillaboom really not applying a lot of offensive pressure there for Costa.
Yeah, with the grassy terrain disappearing, it didn't even have access to that priority grassy glide. And key information, we did see that the Cinderace flinched before the Togekiss went for its attack, so that Cinderace was still outspeeding the Togekiss. So a very important max guard and switch in of the Rillaboom from Patrick. Fantastic play there. Not letting Costa get that one chance he had left in the match and get that double up into the Togekiss, playing it nice and safe, getting that Rillaboom in, and able to boost its speed up once again with the Togekiss, and able to put this into a Game 3.
Yeah, I love that. Going to the Game 3 here. Obviously, these players now have got a lot of information that they can take into this game. They know a little bit more about the moves, the sets, and the items. In that particular game, though, I feel like Costa made quite a risky play retrieving your Dynamax Pokemon so that you don't have access to all that extra boost. And it always felt like when he did that in that turn is when he lost the momentum, and it allowed Patrick to be able to capitalize on this change. Yes, Rillaboom became really sort of offensively threatening, but it was still a turn where Patrick didn't have to worry about the Dynamax. He was able to deal out some big damage of his own, deal a little bit more strategy around the field, and eventually was able to whittle away at the Pokemon that Costa had and get rid of that Riolu so the strategy could not be executed anymore in the match.
Yeah, it was very brave of him going for that Gigantamax on the Cinderace in front of that potential Tyranitar switch in to get the Sand Rush going. And fortunately, the Excadrill didn't go for the Dynamax and take out the Cinderace. But now both players know that that is an option. If the Cinderace is led once again with that Riolu in front of an Excadrill and not a Tyranitar, then you've always got to fear that Tyranitar switch in. So it's going to be some interesting mind games going into this Game 3 if they opt to lead the same.
Exactly, and there isn't really a lot that Costa can do to change the weather. I mean, with the Lapras, you could maybe Dynamax or Gigantamax, most likely, that Pokemon, and then go for something like a Max Geyser. And of course, that's something that Excadrill doesn't want to face down against either. So it does give Costa a lot of sort of options where he can apply a lot of pressure and force Patrick to be on the back foot while he plays. But I think in that game, Patrick was just able to capitalize on some of the maybe safe or defensive plays that Costa was making there and able to start picking away at the Pokemon that were causing him trouble. I thought it was an interesting adjustment as well to leave Primarina at the back and not go for that Trick Room.
Yeah, well, we saw how ineffective that Trick Room was when the Riolu could just copycat it. But maybe if Patrick's able to take out the Riolu before he sets up the Trick Room, if he gets Primarina into Trick Room, it does a lot of work against Costa's team here. But that Riolu just being able to reverse it immediately is very threatening. And yeah, the Cinderace could potentially switch out into the Rillaboom immediately if it is led again against the Excadrill. I would expect to see the Excadrill be led for Patrick's side of the field. You've got to threaten down that Cinderace with something. And even if that's not something that can outspeed it immediately, you've got that threat of the Tyranitar in the back as well. So maybe an adjustment for Costa here could be switching up the Cinderace with a lead of a different Pokemon, or just immediately switching out that Cinderace. You'd still get that coaching boost on whatever switched in. We saw that Rillaboom get to +2 after 2 coaching boosts as it switched in and then attacked. So that could be an option that Costa wants to go for. But then you've just got those mind games. Maybe the Tyranitar doesn't even switch in.
Exactly. Game 3 is really where you can kind of get into the mind of your opponent a little bit more. Costa, however, changing things up. Cinderace is not the lead. Instead, it is going to be the Rillaboom paired up with the Riolu, and a Rillaboom apiece, as that's what Patrick decided to leave paired up with that Excadrill. So, like you said, Jamie, what's going to happen here now with the leads on Patrick's side? Is Tyranitar going to come in, apply some good pressure, or is the Excadrill looking in a little bit of a vulnerable position, potentially going to play defensively this turn?
Yeah, Excadrill's probably going to be outspeeding both the Rillaboom and the Riolu without the Sand boost, so the Tyranitar may not need to switch in to be able to get those boosts. The Excadrill can boost its defenses as well with those Max Steel Spikes if that's what it chooses to go for, and there's fake out pressure on both sides of the field, so maybe the Rillaboom wants to fake out that Riolu to stop any coachings going off into the Rillaboom, making it vulnerable to any attacks that the Excadrill wants to go for. But maybe the Rillaboom on Costa's side is going to be faster than the Rillaboom. Maybe gets to fake it out first and get a coaching off into the Rillaboom before the Riolu gets faked out. The interactions of the speed between the Rillaboom and the fake outs is going to be important here.
It certainly is, and where the fake outs are going to target, because of course if you target into a Dynamax Pokemon, fake out does not get that secondary effect of the flinch either, so you need to make sure you're not wasting that kind of one opportune move to go for Fake Out. Costa, it looks like, was the one to Dynamax there. Yes, going for the G-Max Rillaboom here. Again, one of my favorite designs in the game. I just think it's so cool and so scary and so awesome all at the same time. But it's going to be interesting to see if Patrick goes for one of his own. He does not. Riolu going straight on the defensive pick, going for the Detect. So just going to save itself from taking any damage here and having its Focus Sash broken by that Fake Out, which is what the Rillaboom on Patrick's side went for. Actually followed up by the High Horsepower. So excellent defensive play there by Costa. Able to Dynamax up and go for a G-Max Drum Solo pretty much for free here, going straight into that Extra Drill. No surprises to anyone. Picks up a really clean one-hit KO, and that immediately puts Costa into such a dominant position.
Yeah, just a fantastic play coming out from Costa there. That Detect's keeping the Riolu safe from that Fake Out and the High Horsepower, which would have been an easy knockout combination onto that Riolu. So just showing the threat that coaching can put onto the field, even when it's not actually used. The Drum Solo was strong enough to take out the Extra even without the coaching boosts. And if we saw a coaching boost go onto that Rillaboom, it would be doing even more damage than that. And such threat put onto the field by that Riolu meant that Patrick decided he wanted it off the field, no coachings at all. But now, thanks to that one Detect, the Riolu still has access to that coaching as it is still on the field. The Extra Drill has been taken care of from the Rillaboom, one of the main threats to that potential Cinderace in the back as well. So, yeah, it's just such a fantastic turn for this Rillaboom. The Togekiss coming in does threaten it with an Airstream that would be able to hit it on its special defensive side rather than the defensive side, so would be bypassing those coaching boosts. But yeah, taking out the Extra Drill just turn one for free was a fantastic play from Costa.
Yeah, and here's an interesting one from Costa as well, deciding to switch out Riolu and bringing in the Comfey here. So not going to be getting any coaching boost in this particular turn, as Patrick decides to go on the offensive, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him Dynamaxing up his Togekiss here, being able to deal out some big damage with something like a Max Airstream, being able to get the speed up on your side of the field, but also applying that sort of physical, sort of special attacking damage onto that Rillaboom. Is going to be able to put Patrick sort of back into this game a little bit more, gaining that speed momentum as well for sort of later on turns. Rillaboom goes straight for that Glassy Glide though, going to go into that Comfey. Does actually a good chunk of damage, does about 50%, so we know that is likely going to be the 2-hit KO there, as Rillaboom does take the Max Airstream. Thanks to being in its Dynamax or Gigantamax form, isn't going to be dealing as much damage as before, but the speed coming up here does put Patrick into that great position going forward.
Yeah, going to be finishing off with a Max Darkness here into the Rillaboom, doing a nice chunk of damage to that Rillaboom, and it's going to be just dropping the special defenses as well, so that maybe that's Comfey's going to be able to do a lot more damage. It's not known too much for its damage though. Its main offensive move is going to be that Draining Kiss that gets that huge boost in priority thanks to its Triage, but still is a very weak move and still not going to be doing too much damage. So I'm very interested to see what this Comfey wants to go for. It does have access to that signature floral healing as well, which does get an extra boost to the healing of the HP if you're in that grassy terrain, and that is exactly what we're seeing with these two Rillabooms on the field. So maybe that Comfey just wants to help out his buddy Rillaboom like the Riolu has been as well, but this time focusing on the HP of the Rillaboom instead. Because with the recovery that it would get from that floral healing, it would put it at very high amounts of HP and easily able to shrug off another one of those Airstreams. So gonna maybe see that coming out from the Comfey, and this Rillaboom still gets access to one more big attack from his Gigantamax form.
I think you're right there, Jamie. It's the synergy that Rillaboom's have with both Riolu and Comfey really can cause a lot of disruption there for Patrick, where maybe simple moves that you feel like would have done more damage, now the calcs are going to be thrown out a little bit more because of either HP being boosted or the coaching going on. But actually, Costa playing a few more mind games, goes for another switch here, brings in the Cinderace to take the Grassy Glide that came out there from the Rillaboom. Still does a big chunk of damage despite not being very effective. Unfortunately, Cinderace not the bulkiest of Pokemon and definitely not going to be remaining on the field while taking a big Max Airstream. So Comfey looks like would have been able to hang around either if it stayed on the field, but I wonder from Costa's perspective if Cinderace or Comfey were the Pokemon of choice to hang around for the rest of the set.
Yeah, he's lost his main way of being able to deal with this Togekiss now. The Max Darkness is still going to put the Rillaboom maybe in range of another one, but the Rillaboom on Costa's side is going to be losing its Gigantamax now. And you've lost that potential Iron Head into the Togekiss, so you've got this big powerhouse of the Rillaboom, but is resisted by the Togekiss. And then you've got two very supportive Pokemon. So losing access to that huge hit from the Cinderace into the Togekiss. I'm not sure how Costa's going to be able to break through this Togekiss now. Riolu's still going to be able to boost the attack of the Rillaboom, and it will still have access to that Grassy Glide if it wants to go for that in the priority, getting the coaching before that attack, but the Togekiss it still remains at full HP here with one more turn of Dynamax. It's going to be able to shrug off whatever the Rillaboom wants to go for. The Rillaboom on Patrick's side is most likely going to be in range of a +1 Grassy Glide, but then the Togekiss just gets to fire off an Airstream into the Rillaboom, and now it's lost its Gigantamax, it's probably going to be in range of that Airstream. And then you're just going to be left with two very supportive Pokemon in that Riolu and Comfey. So I'm very curious to see how Costa's going to break through this Togekiss on Patrick's side of the field.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure there on the Rillaboom for sure if you're Costa. And as well, the Togekiss being able to deal out a lot of damage, but I think critically it's still at 100% full HP. So if it's able to keep that sort of HP very healthy, it's going to have more longevity in this set, and there's not a lot that sort of Riolu, Comfey and Rillaboom can do to be able to reduce that health from the Togekiss that can sit there on the field, deal out another max Airstream, get itself really, really speedy, and then deal out more damage as the turn goes on and just whittle away at the rest of Costa's Pokemon. As well, Sand's coming onto the field now with Tyranitar. That's going to chip away at Costa's Pokemon at the end of every turn as well. Riolu, however, going for that Copycat, once again going for the knockoff, going to go into, doesn't affect into that Tyranitar, of course, because it's Prankster, and Tyranitar is a dark type, so really nice switch in there from Patrick. Not sure if he predicted that mechanic, but just fantastic play there, bringing that Pokemon in. As Togekiss goes for the Max Starfall, so also going to change up the terrain a little bit. Going to bring that Misty terrain in with a cheeky critical hit as well, so no more priority grassy glides. It's very difficult to say multiple times, Jamie, on that Rillaboom. So yeah, definitely a turn that really worked out there for Patrick, and Costa once again has this Rillaboom that's now no longer on the field. There's not a lot that he can do against the sort of fortress of Patrick's team.
Yeah, and there's now the grassy terrain's been overwritten by that Misty terrain, so the floral healing that could come out from the Comfey isn't going to be doing too much damage. The Tyranitar switch in, they're also breaking the sash of the Riolu as well. The Togekiss does have -2 special defense from the darkness, so maybe if the Comfey is able to do a lot of damage with the Draining Kiss, it does get a lot of recovery back with that Draining Kiss onto the Togekiss. Maybe that's going to be the way through this Togekiss, to slowly whittle away at it with the Draining Kisses at -2. But Patrick still does have 3 Pokemon. He could switch out that Togekiss, get rid of those special defense drops, and then just bring it in to be able to deal with the Comfey and the Riolu a lot better. Comfey's not really a Pokemon you want to be coaching. It will raise its defenses for the Rillaboom and the Tyranitar, but it's not going to be able to make use of those attack boosts.
Yeah, Rillaboom going to come in here for Patrick, just change the terrain back up, so that it's going to have some priority going forward, and obviously boosted up by the grassy terrain as well. Even though, like you said, that will help out Comfey a little bit, I feel like it's not going to be enough at all. Comfey and Riolu both not known for being the most offensive Pokemon in the world. They're definitely supporting roles. Comfey going for the Draining Kiss, however, going to go into that Rillaboom. Does a little smidge of damage to it, and obviously will regain some HP as well. But there's just not a lot of offensive pressure coming out here. Yes, Comfey is going to be able to get the defense boost up and the attack boost as well. Going to be able to take some of these attacks from Tyranitar and Rillaboom more effectively. But I just think in the long run, when in reality both of Patrick's Pokemon can deal out big attacks, it's basically going to be a double up into that slot where it's not going to be able to deal a lot of damage in return.
Yeah, and we'll have to see if the Riolu's got an offensive attack here, because both the Pokemon on Patrick's side are very low. Riolu would probably be able to take out both the Rillaboom and the Tyranitar if it is carrying one of its fighting moves that it has access to. And the Comfey may be able to take out this Tyranitar with the Draining Kiss. We saw how much it did to the Rillaboom. That looks like it's probably in range again. You still have fake out pressure from the Rillaboom, maybe wanting to fake out that Comfey, because that is really the only Pokemon that can do much damage on the field here. But those coaching boosts actually may keep the Comfey safe from both this Rillaboom and the Tyranitar, and might be able to just slowly whittle away at Patrick's team. Draining Kiss does recover a lot of HP, as we saw. It didn't do too much damage to the Rillaboom, but it is enough to take it out, most likely here, based on the previous damage. And it's a significant chunk of healing that it gets back, as well as the grassy terrain that Rillaboom's put up on the field.
Yeah, you're quite right there. There could be a few sort of sneak attacks coming out from Costa's side here that could whittle his way back into this game. You've got to remember the Togekiss in the back as well. Rillaboom has been dealt with though. Of course, if Riolu had any kind of fighting attack, that would have been amazing against that Tyranitar. But instead, goes for the coaching. Will have to take a fighting type attack in retaliation though with the superpower. And the one thing as well that Patrick doesn't have now is the opportunity to switch around his Pokemon. So in this particular game, the drops he's taken from the superpower will now be staying until the end of the set.
Yeah, and we saw one of the nice niches of Comfey come out as well there. Because the Draining Kiss has +3 priority, it's on the same priority tier as Fake Out. So Comfey is actually able to move with its Draining Kiss before the Fake Out comes out and take out the Rillaboom. So maybe this Comfey is able to do it. The Tyranitar's really not threatening the Comfey too much. It's reduced its attack with the drop in attack from the superpower, and the Comfey's got a coaching boost as well. So This Comfey could potentially do it. It's got very reasonable special defense. It's just dependent on the Togekiss, whether it's got something like a Yawn that can put the Comfey to sleep. We did see it get a critical hit before with its Starfall onto the Rillaboom. Maybe it's going to be getting more of those critical hits depending on its item and ability choice, but this Comfey really could do it.
Yeah, it's definitely not count Comfey out. Maybe I was a little bit too harsh at the beginning to kind of criticize it, but I think as well with the Comfey, it has to choose its target correctly. Togekiss, we can see here, doesn't have any sort of protect move, but Tyranitar does. So that's something that if Comfey calls that incorrectly, it leaves the partner Pokemon on Patrick's side to deal out damage and you can just keep whittling away at it. Tyranitar does go for the protect, but Comfey did choose correctly, goes into the Togekiss here. As you can see, it does about 20 damage. So that's a calculation to start putting into your head, to start thinking how this game's going to go out. Togekiss, single target, Dazzling Gleam into the Comfey though. That does a huge chunk of damage. That's not even a critical hit as well. So if Togekiss is able to go for one of those, which we've seen it do so many times on top of the sand damage, it looks like Comfey's going to be in a little bit of a tricky spot.
Yeah, and we're getting quite close to the end of time as well, so that could be another factor going into this endgame. The Tyranitar still does have its special defense boost from the sand, may be able to take this Draining Kiss.
Yeah, Comfey going for Draining Kiss once again, this time going into that Tyranitar. Able to survive though, Comfey just going to deal itself up a little bit there as Togekiss again goes for another Dazzling Gleam. Does huge amount of damage and you can see that Comfey is just being whittled away as the turns go on. Rock Slide as well connects onto the Comfey. Thanks to the coaching boost though, able to take that a lot better than it previously would have been able to. But I just don't think the HP recovery here from the Comfey is going to be able to outweigh the double target from both the Patrick's Pokemon.
Yeah, it's just not doing enough damage with that Draining Kiss to get back the recovery that it needs. And Patrick should be able to clean up this game. It's probably going to be in range of one more Dazzling Gleam as well. And even if it's not, he could follow up with the Tyranitar, but he's just going to protect it this turn.
Yeah, just going to keep Tyranitar around for the end of the match here. Comfey going for the Draining Kiss once again into that Togekiss. Going to regain itself up just a little smidge, but Togekiss looking to be in such a strong position to be able to deal big damage. It may not actually pick up the KO on this particular one, just as sand has gone as well. Yeah, able to just hang on, but it is just a case of a matter of time here at the moment.
Yeah, we just need to see one more Dazzling Gleam come out from this Togekiss. The grassy terrain even disappearing, so even less residual recovery for this Comfey as well. And yeah, it did very well. If it was just a bit stronger, it may have been able to do a bit more damage and recover more HP with the Draining Kiss. It did much better than I expected it to in this position. It just needed a bit more offensive pressure, and it could have done it, but unfortunately, not able to do it this time. And Patrick is able to take the win for Ireland.
Yeah, he certainly is. So, woohoo, Team Ireland! That's awesome. One tick in the box. But I think you're right there. The Comfey did actually manage to put up a good sort of fight towards the end, but I think the problem was when it came onto the field, its partner Pokemon was that Riolu, which wasn't really able to support it in any way offensively. So it was really all up to the Comfey, and that's a lot of pressure to put on some pretty pedal shoulders. So it was just a little bit too much of an ask for him. But that game 3 started very, very differently to how the end result was. You know, Costa went really high on the offensive there, was able to pick up the KO against that Excadrill, putting him in such a strong position. But it almost felt like as the game went on and he was making those quite bold switches and often, I think, trying to tempt Patrick into targeting that slot and then switching it in for another Pokemon, didn't work out for him as maybe he'd envisioned.
Yeah, I think that Cinderace switch in on the double up from the Rillaboom and Togekiss was very critical there. That Cinderace was the best way through the Togekiss that Patrick had. And as soon as the Cinderace came in and just got KO'd immediately, then there really wasn't any way through that Togekiss anymore.
Yeah, Togekiss as well, just one of those Pokemon that once it gets into its Dynamax, it has so much bulk, so much HP, it's really hard to get rid of. And unfortunately, Costa was put into a position where he just didn't have the utility to be able to pick up damage against it, leaving Togekiss free in its Dynamax turns to just keep dealing out big damage, also boosting up the speed that was very helpful. Of course, speed's always great when, you know, there's no Trick Room being involved. And it just really meant that Patrick was able to gain up momentum and really start to control the match towards the end of the set.
Yeah, and Costa had such an amazing turn one with that double up into the detecting Riolu and just taking the clean knockout on the Excadrill as well. But then just his switching arounds, I think he switched maybe 3 times in a row with the Riolu to Comfey to Cinderace, and then he just lost the Cinderace. So yeah, two supportive Pokemon at the end of that game is not what you want to see when you need to take out something like a Togekiss.
Certainly, but I think it was a good showcase for Riolu as well. Like, we have to credit that. It was a really tricky Pokemon, and particularly in that game one, Patrick really had a lot of problems against it. But he masterfully was able to adapt going into game two and be like, right, this is the problem. This is what lost me game one. This is how I'm going to change it. Take down this Pokemon, get rid of the Riolu, and then start going through the rest of the Pokemon on Costa's side. So really well played from both of them. You know, it was a fantastic match. I always love it when it goes to a game three. It does just show how close this competition can get.
Yeah, and unfortunately,